Hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again with another YouTube reading guide series. Today is the 6th of 11 videos I'm going to be releasing over the next few weeks, each of which covers a specific DC event. I've created these series of maps to these events, initially at least, as a byproduct to creating my Superman reading order, which I'm actually releasing interspersed with these videos. To create the Superman reading guide, I had to read almost 1,700 comic issues that comprised every appearance of Superman from 1991 to 2011. That included spin-offs, miniseries, tie-ins, and as we're talking about today, events. And so, given I was reading all those events, I used that knowledge to build some of the internet's most detailed reading maps for DC events. Unlike my Superman reading guide, which is, for various reasons, just taking the form of a simple Google sheet split into several tabs, the maps that I've made for DC events are generally going to be infographics where that is warranted. Each event gets its own map, so today DC 1 million will have its own map, and that can be viewed for free on my website. This playlist contains every single DC event video in chronological order, taking up to 11 videos in total. If you're interested in the Superman guide too, but you're not watching the Superman playlist, don't worry. The YouTube playlist for Superman will also contain these events in the right sequence as well. Okay, quick bit of housekeeping just to set the scene. When I read events, I read every single issue, even vaguely tied into the event or rumored to be vaguely tied into the event. I then split them into three types of issues. In green, we have the essential issues, which include key and essential points and events that happen inside the universe-wide crossover. If you miss one of these issues, you will be lost. I then have amber issues, which I put in a little amber box, and those are issues that are impacted by the events that do kind of tie into it, but they're not essential reading. And then with a red outline, I have token events. So these are events that have only the faintest link to the event, if any link at all, and they can be utterly disregarded. Often the only thing they have in common with the event is a little bit of branding on the cover. On that note, if I use a solid line, that means the issue has branding on the cover. And if I use a dotted line, that means the issue is not branded on the cover. Okay, with no further ado, let's have a look at the map here. This is my DC 1 million infographic. It covers all 42 issues, splitting them into those three groups, and also covers recommended reading orders. I know it looks a little bit strange, and you're probably wondering why there's all these issues here on the right-hand side, split off by this 1 million partition logo. We'll discuss that in just a moment. First things first, I just want to give you a quick idea what DC 1 million is. DC 1 million, and this is spoiler free, just a quick overview. It was a 1998 universe-wide crossover event published by DC Comics. A featured division of the DC Universe set in the 853rd century. That was chosen because that's the century in which, assuming DC are still around and are still publishing regular monthly comics, they will first publish an issue of Action Comics 1 million. The miniseries itself is a core miniseries of 4 issues, and that was written by Grant Morrison, who was also writing JLA at the time. So if you've heard of the famous JLA run, this is a really key part of that as far as I'm concerned. As mentioned, the core event is a 4 issue miniseries which we'll be looking at, in which the 20th century Justice League of America and the 853rd century Justice League Alpha cooperate to defeat a plot by the supervillain Vandal Savage, who, given he's practically immortal, exists in both time periods. It also involves them foiling a future new Superman nemesis, Solaris the Living Sun. As is often the way with universe-wide events, every series being published by DC at the time also put out a single tie-in issue, numbered 1 million. Now, it's worth noting that DC have published this as a single collected omnibus here. You can buy this on Amazon. It's not particularly hard to get. It's a big, thick, well-produced, glossy omnibus, and it's got almost every single DC 1 million issue in it, barring one, which I'll discuss in just a moment. I'm going to show you the reading order of the issues in the omnibus here. This is the reading order. I know this because I have, or rather I had, the physical omnibus. I read it and I made a note of every single issue and the order in which that issue was shown. I disagree with this mapping for lots of reasons, not least of all because a lot of the issues are garbage and a lot of the issues that are branded DC 1 million have nothing to do with it. However, if you're interested, here it is. Take a screenshot, write it down. If you want this as part of the written guide, which I've also released as part of this month's set of videos, so you can always pick that up as well from Amazon. But yeah, this is the confirmed physical omnibus order. The one thing I'll point out is that there is one branded DC 1 million issue released by DC called Young Heroes in Love 1 million. and that, for some reason, is not collected in the omnibus. Anyway, back to the reading guide here. This is the map. For my reading map, I've split all 42 issues into 7 essential issues. Those are in green on the left. 21 related issues. Those are in orange in the middle. And then 14 token issues in red on the right. And I'll talk about those one by one. Now, this is where we're starting getting into reading sequences and reading orders for DC events that start getting a bit big and a bit sprawling. Wait until you see my Infinite Crisis map. The thing to keep in mind here is that you have to have some flexibility mentally, psychologically as a reader to be able to group things together thematically, understand that some things aren't perfectly going to line up chronologically, and so on. As I said in my introductory video for this series, if you're a type P type reader, in other words, if you're obsessed about having the absolute perfect chronological flawless reading order, scene by scene, moment by moment, then these reading maps aren't for you, simply because a perfect reading order does not exist and cannot exist. I'd recommend you be more of a type J reader and you just view things thematically and in general chronological order rather than being a slave to the sequence. With that said, let's dive into it. Oh, here we are. Sorry, zooming in and out. Let's zoom in on the left-hand side. What we have here, and again, keep in mind these maps are available on my website and they're infinitely scalable, infinitely zoomable. You can play around with them to your heart's content. We start off with this issue. This is DC 1 million, issue 1. That's the first one you read. Now, set straight after that is a immediately quite interesting and slightly confusing thing. We have Green Lantern, issue 1 million, which you can see here with Kyle on the cover. Now, that says it's to be continued in Martian Manhunter, which is this issue here. So it's Martian Manhunter 1 million. That continues on from Green Lantern, and that says very explicitly it's to be continued in Resurrection Man. So I'm going to scroll all the way down because Resurrection Man actually goes here. Yeah, it's definitely set exactly here, and we'll get to it in a few minutes' time. So it's kind of up to you how you want to read it. I would recommend reading issue 1, then Green Lantern, then Martian Manhunter, and then just kind of psychologically pressing pause on that and moving on to the next set. It's up to you how you do it. I'm just showing you how things are linked. Speaking of how things are linked, we also have this trilogy of Superman related issues. If you come here from my Superman guide, you'll be very interested in this. It starts off with Superman Action Comics on the left here. That is then to be continued on The Adventures of Superman, which is in the middle here. But also, and this is slightly confusing, it also continues in Green Arrow 1 million as well. So again, you kind of have your own choice as to where to go on this. Quick side note, if I hadn't mentioned it before, every single issue is issue 1 million. That's the way the 1 million event works. That's why I don't need to zoom in too much and show you the issue numbers, because they're all issue 1 million. Anyway, as I said, we have Action Comics 1 million there. That also continues on to Green Arrow 1 million if you're interested in that. Again, it's related, so if you're not a Green Arrow fan, skip the Green Arrow issue. It also goes into Adventures of Superman 1 million here. This, to be very clear, is clearly set after the Martian Manhunter issue, but before the Resurrection Man issue that we just mentioned. That's why I put this trilogy of issues here. And Adventures of Superman then moves on into Man of Tomorrow issue 1 million. Now, this ends with a particular event, which I'm going to refer to as going to Jupiter. And so as a result, we can be quite confident this ends here and we'll jump back onto Superman in a moment. So let's see, we've looked at the Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, weird kind of cycle there. We looked at Superman and obviously a bit of Green Arrow. The next thing to keep an eye on are these two issues. We have Shazam, issue 1 million, which then continues on into Flash, issue 1 million, and Flash ends with what I'm going to call the Jupiter meeting. So again, just to highlight, what we have here are issues where related issues you go into the first related issue and that leads into the second related issue and so on. So there's a clear chronology here. With Superman, we've got a chronology of 3 issues. With Shazam and Flash, we have a chronology of 2 issues as well. We then have Batman. Let's not get too overexcited. We have Batman 1 million. This continues in Catwoman 1 million. Now, we then have three completely distinct issues. Um, I'll start here on the right actually, because a lot of people might think that Robin 1 million is the issue that comes directly after Catwoman. It is set after Catwoman 1 million, but in that sense, it's set at the same time as Aquaman 1 million and Wonder Woman 1 million. And all three of these issues end with what I'm going to call the meeting in Jupiter. So again, you can read these if you want. They're all relatively standalone, they're all relatively random. That finally takes us to our second essential issue, which is DC 1 million issue 2. This is obviously an essential issue. It's worth noting it does make some passing references to events of the Mark Waid story, The Kingdom, which itself is a sequel to the Alex Ross story, Kingdom Come. Random bit of trivia for you there. After that, we then have a related issue. We have Kronos, issue 1 million, as you can see here. Now, this is set in the 853rd century, as a lot of them are. It appears to be, as far as I'm aware, the first mention of the Chronovore, which we see Grant Morrison use a lot in their later stories, like All-Star Superman and things like that. A lot of people view this as essential, but I don't really see it, as Gabriel's theft of what I'm going to call the time gauntlets don't really seem to intersect with anything else, such as Vandal Savage at any point. So I don't really get it, but it's clearly a related issue as well, worth reading if you're interested. We then have a quick pair, or rather trilogy of issues. We have Batman, or rather Shadow of the Bat 1 million. That's this issue here with the cool looking future Batman on it. And we then have Nightwing 1 million on the right here, also a related issue. So once you've read Shadow of the Bat, that then is to be continued in Nightwing. After you've read Nightwing, that is to be continued in Detective Comics 1 million, which I put down as an essential issue. Now keep in mind, you can read Detective Comics 1 million after DC 1 million issue 2. You don't have to read Shadow of the Bat or Nightwing, but of course, because everyone's a Batman fan, I've no doubt that people will. But it's not necessary. Anyway, after Batman, or rather, sorry, Detective Comics 1 million, the next issue which is essential is, surprisingly enough, Starman 1 million. Absolutely essential. We then go into a couple of random related issues. The first one here is Impulse 1 million. Which is set in the 20th century and is about him essentially handling a particular weapon or warhead, for want of a better term. And it ends by saying to be continued in JLA 1 million. We'll get to that in a second. But before we do, we have this little trilogy of super related issues. Superboy 1 million here on the left. It shows where Dabney Donovan is. If you don't know who Dabney Donovan is, doesn't matter. But if you have been reading the Superman issues up until this point, and you've been part of my Superman reading guide, you'll probably read it and go, oh, right, Dabney Donovan, I wonder where he'd gone. It's worth noting that that is actually set after, as far as I could tell, Young Justice 1 million, but we'll get onto Young Justice 1 million later on when we look at irrelevant, useless issues that you should probably ignore. So anyways, that's Superboy 1 million. Don't worry about the reference to Young Justice. That then leads directly into Man of Steel 1 million, which we can see here in the middle. And that says is to be continued in Superman 1 million, which we can see here on the right. There. So that's a trinity of issues, one after the other, that need to be read in that sequence. Superman 1 million then says it's to be continued in JLA 1 million, and it does reference the Superboy issue. So I pretty much stand by this reading order. This is how it should be. Anyway, if you don't read those, or if you do read those, after reading Starman 1 million, the next essential issue is this one, which is JLA 1 million. That says to be continued in DC 1 million 3. And here it is. This is it. Next, DC 1 million 3. This is essential, obviously, it's in green, and this says to be continued in DC 1 million 4, which is down here. Fantastic. However, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice there's one related issue set explicitly between DC 1 million 3 and 4, and that is Resurrection Man 1 million, as we can see here. And so you can see that whilst this ends saying to be continued in DC 1 million 4, the fact that Resurrection Man actually is the direct sequel to, all the way up here, Martian Manhunter issue 1 million, which is set directly after DC 1 million 1, You can kind of see what I mean when I say you need to be slightly psychologically flexible in terms of how you're going to read these. Okay, those are the essential and related DC 1 million issues. We'll talk a little bit more about a custom binder. I had of those made in a minute. But before I do that, I want to look at the issues that I put over here on the side, clearly demarcated by a DC 1 million banner. They're all in red, they're all token issues. Let's talk about them. So, in no particular order, because there is no particular order. Oh, this is the thing about having something that infinitely zooms in and out. It's quite easy to lose control of it. So, here we go. Yeah, that's as far as I'm going to zoom in. So to start off with, what do we have here? Supergirl, 1 million, token issue. Uh, Young Heroes in Love. Now, remember, I said that this was not in the omnibus collection, the physical hardcover that you can buy off Amazon or something like that. So Supergirl is in that. Young Heroes in Love is the one missing issue that is not in the physical omnibus. It's a very token issue. You don't need to read it. It's essentially like a Peanuts pastiche. Oh, I hope that didn't get messed up by my microphone. Peanuts, as in Snoopy, Charlie Brown. It's got that kind of vibe to it, and it's just a pastiche of the DC 1 million event. So you've got Supergirl, Young Heroes in Love. You have Young Justice, 1 million, which is just a comedy issue. Ignore that. No need to read that. We have Hitman 1 million, which is essentially a one issue piss take of the entire event, as one might expect from Garth Ennis. You have Chase 1 million, which is an amazing issue and got me so excited. I went out and actually tracked down the ongoing Chase series from the late 90s because I loved this issue. It is, however, a token issue and not related to the DC 1 million event in any real way. We also have Legionnaires 1 million. This ends by teasing issue 1 million 1 and says to be continued in Legion of Superheroes. There is no issue 1 million and 1, and Legion of Superheroes is here and is pretty much distinct and standalone from it, and also a token issue. We then have Lobo 1 million. If you've gathered from my video so far, I'm not a fan of Lobo. That trend continues here. Lobo is not very good or not very interesting. And we then have Azrael 1 million, or rather Sword of Azrael 1 million. This marks a change in the title of the series, because up until this point in the 90s, the series was just called Azrael. But after the 1 million or issue 1 million one shot, the ongoing series that continues being published after this then changes its title to Sword of Azrael instead of being Azrael. I think that happened to like issue 49 or something like that. I'm not sure, but it's around that ballpark. Continuing the irrelevant token issues theme, we have Creeper 1 million. Wouldn't recommend that. Here's where stuff gets interesting. We have Booster Gold 1 million. Now, this is a token issue, but this was published like 10 years after DC 1 million. In fact, this issue is part of the ongoing 2008 event 52, which is happening at the time in 2008. Now, this issue is actually a finale of the Blue and Gold story arc from Booster Gold ongoing at the time, which means that if you want to read the Blue and Gold story arc from Booster Gold's 2008 series, you need to read issues 0, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 1 million. This really should have been excluded from the Omni because it has very little, if basically nothing, to do with the DC 1 million event. And then we have this, the DC 1 million 80-page giant. This is included in the omnibus. It essentially is an issue containing loads of token stories. So it's got a short story in it called System's Finest, another one called Tales of the Legion of Executive Familiars. There's one called Divided Self, which is actually written by Grant Morrison. One called Head Games, about Robin the Toy Wonder. One called Deep Cover. One called Day in the Lives, which is actually quite a good story. And then a final very short 4 or 5 page one called Crisis 1 Million, also written by Morrison. So there's this as a sort of anthology one shot. I wouldn't really recommend digging it out, but it's not a terrible read, I guess. And then right at the end, we actually have a two-parter, believe it or not. What we have is from the ongoing Superman Batman series, which has been going on since sort of the early 2000s. Issue 79 and issue 80. God, this must have been around about 2009, 2010. So yeah, issue 79 and issue 80 of Superman Batman, the pre-Flashpoint series, is a two-parter that does reference and tie in to DC 1 million. As you can see from the cover here, we've got the Justice League Alpha, and we've got Robin the Toy Wonder, and then we've got some more Justice League Alpha stuff there on issue 80. They're not really relevant. They don't really tie in well at all. They're absolutely token. I would not bother with them in the slightest. Okay, wow, that was quite a lot, and getting more and more complicated, I'm afraid. So this is the DC 1 million event. I'll scroll down there so you can see all the issues, but you can't see the banner. So there are three ways of reading this event, really. You can get the omnibus, or read them in the omnibus order that I flashed up on screen at the beginning of the video. You can go by the written order, which essentially indicates what I had above. You can skip related or token issues as you see fit, and of course the written guide is available for you to get. Or you can use this infographic, which indicates what issues are clustered together and showing if they lead into parallel or particular key issues. I'm aware using the infographic requires a slightly flexible mindset, as we've seen with that Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, Resurrection Man thing, or even later down here when we've got stuff like Shadow of the Bat, Nightwing, and Detective Comics. Like, it takes a little bit of flexibility to work out what you want to read and how you want to read it, but ultimately that's the nature of comics. There is no absolute truth. That's why this is a reading guide and a reading map rather than a reading order. Hopefully that is helpful. What I'm just going to do now, in theory, is I'm going to edit in a little slice about a custom DC 1 million bind that I did. If you've been watching my channel, I would have done a couple of videos by now showing the DC 1 million omnibus, which I purchased, me cutting out a load of pages by hand, which traumatized a lot of viewers, and then me getting that bound into a much slimmer, oversized hardcover, which is only about a third of the size of the full omnibus. And in that, essentially what I've done is got rid of all the token issues on the right in red, and I've kept all the ones here on the left that I wanted to in the order that I wanted them in. Yeah, let's cut to that now. Let me know what you think.
And hello YouTube. So I'm filming this as a little bit of a back end or an add-on to my DC 1 million reading guide, just to show you something which you may not know if you're not familiar with my channel. The DC 1 million omnibus exists as a retail edition. In fact, I'll show you a picture of it here. However, what I have done is I've made my own version of it, which as you can see is much, much slimmer. Now, there is a video on my channel in my custom binds, not only showing me showing this off in a lot of detail and discussing what issues are in it and so on, but also showing me having the original omnibus and going through it and cutting the pages out, and it's got all the sound effects so you can hear me slicing through all the paper and stuff. It's quite traumatic if you're a comic fan. And then it talks through what issues I've kept and why. As we've just seen from the reading map, over a third of the issues in the DC 1 million event are just absolute nonsense. They're very token and they're not necessary at all. And so rather than having something over double this thickness on my shelf, space is always a premium in my library, I wanted to cut it down to this, which I've done and I'm very, very happy with. To give you an idea of the difference, I have kept the previous dust jacket. So if I was to slot this in here, can you see this? This is the difference. I've literally got rid of over half of this event in terms of making my own slimmed down, it's not even an omnibus anymore, I guess, oversized hardcover, and I got my own dust jacket and so on made. But I kept the old dust jacket, as you can see here, because I just thought it was quite a cool comparison to have. Anyway, so the only reason I wanted to show you this was to show you something cool about DC 1 million. There are some other videos on my channel, and I'll try to link to them in the description below, but they're basically in my custom comic playlists. But what I would say, as a random thought, I do actually have this dust jacket sitting around completely spare. So quick small giveaway on my channel. If you're familiar with my channel, I do random giveaways interspersed with various videos. There'll be another one amongst my Superman reading order, and there'll be a few others scattered around. If anyone wants this, hit me up in the comments. When I see that, I will reply to you, I will get your details off you, and I will post this to you at my own cost, absolutely free. I guess for something like this, I could send it overseas if you wanted to, because it wouldn't cost me too much. So yeah, I'd be up for doing that. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, I will flat pack this and I will send it to you if you want this dust jacket. Absolutely for free, just for being a supporter of the channel. What was I going to say? Why would you need this? I guess you'd need this if yours got damaged, if there was water damage, or if it got ripped or anything like that. You know, I have some friends who've had their comics damaged in flooding and stuff, and so to get a new dust jacket would be quite useful. So if you want one, give me a shout. Other than that, as I say, this is just to give you an idea of how much I sliced out. So, you know, I put my money where my mouth is.
And there we have it. In case you're interested in knowing where these resources are, so the guides, the maps, and so on, they're all available on my website. They're all available for free. You can go into the website, which is nogodsorkings.com, and download the Google Sheet for the Superman reading order, or you can go on the website and look at these reading maps for all the various DC events and a whole bunch of other things I've got on there to your heart's desire. If, however, you are interested in a written version of this guide, then it is available on Amazon. I've recently just self-published it. It is the cheapest possible tier you can get on Amazon. So it's 79 pence UK, 99 cents American, and so on. It's free if you're on Kindle Unlimited, and there is a free sample on the website as well. The reason I put this onto Amazon is kind of a proof of concept. I'm interested to see if people are interested in the written guides, whether or not people want to pick them up. And also, it's a good way for me to bat off all the people that are going to be in the comments asking for a Batman guide. If you want a Batman guide, I don't really particularly have any interest in doing one, but I will do one if this book gets 500 reviews. So if this book gets 500 5-star reviews, then I will start doing a Batman reading guide at some point. I don't think that's going to happen, but there we are. Of course, feel free to support the channel by picking this up. Of course, like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, the best way to support the channel is by picking up one of my other books, which isn't a non-fiction reading guide. It's actually a fictional, completely original superhero story. It's prose, so not a comic or words, but it's about superheroes in just a really interesting kind of post-apocalyptic dystopic idea. The first 4 books of the series are out, and if you want to support, please pick that up. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay classy.